Welcome back, my friends. I'm the Book Guy, and today we're talking about my friends over at the channel Talking Story. They released their first book, Discovery, just over a month ago, and I received an advanced copy way back in February, but I am thrilled to say I loved this book. It's a great book. I'm not just recommending this book because I like the authors, I genuinely think it's extremely well written. Honestly, it's a huge relief. Could you imagine how awkward this would be if it sucked? The author name is J.A.J. Minton, which stands for John, Amy, and Jakob, who all wrote this book together. It's the start of a series, Strange Eons, which will have a total of 5 books. This book is also a clever mishmash of different genres. We have cosmic horror, urban sci-fi, and alternate history, since this is set in the 1990s. I was amazed at just how ambitious this story is to attempt to blend all these genres, yet blend they did. This is a masterclass in how to balance contrasting themes and styles in a way that makes the story better. However, as much as I loved this book, I don't think it's necessarily for everyone. I know, people assume that if it's a good book, then everyone has to read it, but I think it's more important to read the right book for you, a book that matches your style. And you need to know, Discovery is, in a word, a strange novel. It's experimental. I've never read anything quite like this. Now, strange books land really well for some people and don't for others. That's okay. Personally, I think this book is extremely creative, original, genre-defying, and ambitious. That appeals to me because I'm a strange kind of guy who's into weird things, but you'll have to decide for yourself if it's your thing. At the very least, the Talking Story channel is for everyone. Even if you don't try this book today, everyone should go subscribe to them. These days, they are the channel that I spend most of my time watching. Alright, enough preamble, let's look at what this story is all about. And did you know this book actually has its own trailer? Let me play you just one piece.
There's something down there.
The year is 1992, and humanity has just discovered something in the ocean. Something impossible, unsettling, and alien. Something that makes us question our own reality. Something that could herald our doom. In the fallout from this discovery, social order breaks down, religions crumble, governments scramble to react, and humanity falls into mass panic. And yet, across the world, several people begin to rise to the occasion. People from different parts of the globe begin their quest to understand this discovery. A university professor who believes a new scientific breakthrough could protect the world. A young girl growing up in a cult whose leaders may have known this discovery was coming. And a boy in Argentina searching for lost artifacts hidden there by the Nazis. And a mysterious nun who seems to know more than she should. These players are about to enter a grand cosmic board game that may be too vast and too horrifying for their human minds to comprehend. This was my favorite aspect of the book, the many genres. It was the single thing that wowed me the most and made me wonder, could I even do this as an author? I don't know if I could, it was that impressive. Now, classifying genre is imprecise, and a genre bender like Discovery is extra difficult to classify, but in my opinion, the main genres we're dealing with here are cosmic horror, urban sci-fi, a period drama, and a lot of mystery. How do they all fit together? Well, for one, the big reason why they work is the unusual structure. This book is split into parts, so each part is about 8 chapters in a row, all from one character's perspective. Part 1 is all about one character and their plotline, and then part 2 will be about a new character and their new plotline. So we spend a lot of time focusing on one part of the story at a time. This is unusual. Normally, a book with multiple protagonists will do one chapter from this guy and one chapter from this girl. Or you might get books like The Wheel of Time or Stormlight Archive, where you'll get a few consecutive chapters in a row before they do the switch. But Discovery spends big chunks of this book on one character at a time. Now, at first, I struggled with this, I'll admit, because I was worried the book would be more like a short story collection with separate stories completely unrelated to each other. Yet, this structure works brilliantly. For one, it successfully balances the different genres. So think of it this way, part 1 is 7 chapters in a row of cosmic horror, and then part 2 is 10 chapters of urban sci-fi, and then part 3 is back to cosmic horror, kind of. This structure helps the different styles and genres fit together. Could you imagine if the book had one chapter of cosmic horror, then one chapter on science, and then one chapter on life in 1992? It would be very disorientating and jarring to constantly switch back and forth, yet by focusing on one thing at a time, it's a much smoother reading experience. It's very well done. The other reason why all these genres and the strange structure work is because they're all linked by two things: the discovery itself and by mystery. Right from the start, it's clear that each section of the book is focused on the same goal. We're all aiming for the same thing. Every story is focused on the discovery and its impact on humanity, so you don't forget for a second that it's all connected to one big story. And each part offers a new insight into the overall mystery. In many ways, it's the mystery plot lines that weave between each segment and link them all together. Questions like who or what is this significant discovery, and how can humanity survive? And as the mystery progresses, we see more connections between these parts than we expected. So this story works because it spends so much time in separate corners of the world, not despite that. Now, let's look at some of the characters and their individual plot lines. I really loved the character writing. The Minton team did a great job at giving these characters unique personalities and perspectives. I especially like the fact that all the characters clearly had a life before the discovery. They have a backstory. Their lives don't just begin on page 1 during a crisis. We get a clear sense of what they've had to go through just to come this far. And because this is a cosmic horror book, all of our characters have some sort of darkness in their life.
Give yourself to the dark side.
But in my opinion, the best part of the character writing is that every character has their own voice, a unique voice, and that takes serious skill to do. Many writers try and fail at voices, or they can only do one voice. Yet the Mintons nailed multiple distinct voices, and that takes talent and a lot of work. Our first protagonist is Nessa Decker. Now, she's a journalist at Winston Media. Nessa is given the job of going through recovered footage from another journalist who went missing in the Pacific Ocean. Yes, it's a found footage plotline like the Blair Witch Project, but in book form. Nessa is a driven professional woman determined to find the truth, and her voice is that of a hardened professional, almost emotionless and considered. And yet it is so fun to watch that voice break down and tremble under the horror of what she finds. Oliver Dass is a professor at Boston University who studies artificial life. Oliver is an antisocial older man. He has some dark childhood trauma that has affected every relationship in his life. Now that the discovery has thrown the world into chaos, Oliver thinks that his artificial life may hold the key to advancing human technology fast enough to save humanity. Although his top student, Lucia, may just give him a run for his money. Oliver's chapters are all written as notes in his diary, and since he's a professor and a scientist, his voice is distinctly academic, like a good scientist just stating the facts. Or at least he's trying to do that. There are times when Oliver's past trauma, or his emotions, or the fear of the situation and the discovery itself lend a certain unreliability to his voice. It's a clever bit of nuance. In Argentina, 16-year-old Tony Calvacante has just witnessed the violent execution of a family member. With no one left to care for him, Tony is sent to live with a strange old German man, Herr Koltz, a man who the rumors say was a former Nazi. Colt has all sorts of strange artifacts around his property, and Tony cannot resist the urge to see what they do. Tony's voice is also distinct, because he's a teenager who's determined to prove himself an adult, and yet he's witnessed something recently so horrifically violent, and he can't fully process it. His voice is full of false bravado and hiding a deeper insecurity. The contrast and the duality is so well done. Our final protagonist is actually not introduced until about halfway through the novel. Near the ocean shores of West Africa, Ashanti Oko is a young child growing up in a dangerous cult. Her father is high up in their hierarchy, and yet Ashanti knows little of what is truly going on and what her family is involved in. Her story is seen through the eyes of a child who cannot cannot comprehend the darker nature of things around her. Yet Ashanti is determined to understand the secrets that the adults are trying to hide from her. Ashanti's voice is the most childlike and the most unreliable of all of our narrators. She's too young to understand what's actually happening, but the audience can see. Ashanti has the blissful ignorance of a child. Her voice contradicts the harsh reality around her. Finally, there's one mysterious figure known only as the Nun. The Nun has the smallest point of view segment in the book, but she shows up over and over again. She knows more than she should. She knows more than she's telling. There was a staggering amount of research that went into this book, and it brought incredible realism and detail to this world. That's another way you can blend different genres, by the way, use just so much realistic detail. So shout out to Amy, who did the lion's share of the research. There's two main areas where the details were super convincing: the history and the multiculturalism. So the story is set in 1992. Now, many authors will assume I lived during that year, so I remember it just fine. But these guys went to great length to get all those details right. How did life exist before the internet? How was traditional media and journalism more important than ever? And what was the geopolitical climate like in the post-Cold War era? Then there's the whole societal breakdown. Because the question is not how would humanity react to this crisis? The question is how would humanity of 1992 react to the crisis? Because that's a very important distinction. Who was the Pope, the US President, the world leaders? That all plays out here with some very clever forethought. And there's the real world history. And just one example I'll share of this, because there's many examples, is the plotline of the Argentinian boy Tony, who's forced to live with the old Nazi. Many Nazis fled to Argentina and would have been very old during the 90s. This dark piece of history was explored with some very delicate handling. Next is the multiculturalism. Now, this isn't just representation, this is literally multiculturalism. In an interview with Philip Chase, which I'll link below and I recommend checking it out, the Mintons discussed how so many stories that feature a global catastrophe seem to only take place in America. It's a very white-centric depiction of humanity. But in Discovery, we have entire plot lines that take place in different parts of the world, with very different cultures. It's not just putting a person of color in a lead role, it's also depicting their people and their culture with accuracy and authenticity. There are two characters from America and two characters from Latin America. One storyline is set in West Africa, and I want to say Nigeria, but I'm actually not sure where the exact country borders were there. We see glimpses of German culture and Irish culture and Pacific Islanders as well. There was deliberate effort to include local languages, phrases, and slang. There were customs, geographical features, and insights into what life is like in these cultures. And all these details felt very real to me. You know, as a white Australian, they felt real, but this book actually inspired me to start looking up these regions. There were several times I stopped reading the book to start Googling some of the things that were in there, and maybe even do some light fact-checking. And as far as I could tell, this was incredibly accurate. This attention to detail made it feel like a genuine global crisis that affected all of humanity, and the realism made the stakes even higher. So you might be wondering, if this is a cosmic horror, just how horrifying is it? So the horror is distinctly there, but it is on the softer side. And that's not a critique, by the way. Fictional horror is a lot like fictional sex scenes in that there are different levels of spice. And I think Discovery has maybe a 2 out of 5 chilies on the horror spice level. Where the horror really shines is the aesthetic. So the vibe is spooky. Imagine you're in a vampire castle. There may not be jump scares or graphic torture chambers, but there's a spooky oil painting with claw marks raked across. Horror isn't always about the things that scare you, it's a lot about just the decor and the style and the vibes of it. And that's what we have here, a world with cosmic horror aesthetic. Things that defy reality and the laws of what we think is possible. Keep in mind too, there's more books to come. I think we'll get to more spookier stuff later in the series. Okay, time to ask a very important question. I loved this book, and I love the Mintons, and I've had nothing but praise for this book so far, but I need to do this review with honesty, so hand on my heart, a gun to my head, Did this book have any problems? Well, I think the beginning of the book took me a little while to get into. It was a little jarring to have one huge chunk of the book be one character in that plotline, only to jump to the other side of the world with a new character and a new plotline and a new genre. The early jumps in the book felt like they might have been a completely different story. Like I said, the structure ended up working very well and was very clever, but it did require some trust on the reader's behalf in the early segments. Also, I felt like most of the horror in this book was in the beginning. After the initial scary parts, there were only a few instances of horror. As a horror fan, I kept waiting for another big creepy segment like we got at the start, and that didn't quite happen. That can be a little bit anticlimactic since there was such a big promise to the reader at the start of the book to introduce us to horror straight away. But honestly, that's all I've got for critiques. I've got nothing else. So why do I think this book is so damn near flawless? Well, in the Philip Chase interview I mentioned earlier, the Mintons shared a story of how they shared an early draft of their book with the author Jenny Wirtz. They told the story of how Jenny called them up and spent an hour and a half brutally telling them everything wrong with the early draft. And the Mintons listened to everything she said. I love it. Do you know how many people have begged me for writing advice just to ignore everything I say? It's because when most people ask for feedback, they're not looking for ways to improve, they're looking for validation and praise. So good authors are the ones who know how to take feedback and then be flexible with their ideas and keep working until it's done right. And the Mintons are good authors. A quick note on the content warning. There's a fair bit of swearing in this book. That surprised me. The characters here speak like real people. And in fact, there are sailors who swear a lot, which is extra fitting. There's some scary horror scenes. There's some dark scenes like the trauma from people's pasts, and the cult plotline has depictions of abuse sort of around children. The only violent part is at the opening. If you can handle the opening, you can handle the whole book. When I got my copy of this book, I just started reading. No context, didn't even read the blurb, just dived straight in. So initially, I was a little surprised when the end of the book didn't wrap up everything. Of course, the book's cover literally says Strange Eons Book 1, An Apocalypse in 5 Acts, so that's on me for not noticing. But I want to make it very clear, this is book 1 of 5. I think book 1 offered up a very strong third act. Avoiding spoilers here, but all the plot lines were relevant and I loved it. By the end of the book, there had been suitable enough surprises, reveals, and a clear sense of the grand cosmic mystery. This isn't like Lost, where it's just one endless mystery after another. There was enough of a reward to give this book a satisfying conclusion, but still know there is more to come. Although you may be inclined to think, oh, well then I'll just wait until all 5 books are out. Can I encourage you to jump on this series now? A series is never as vulnerable as it is at the very beginning, especially indie books. Series like this require audience participation in order to survive and get to the end. Big traditional authors can survive on advances and book deals, and a much larger audience, where indie authors need the support early on. So if you like the sounds of this book, I encourage you to jump on board now. There are links in the description below. Still, that's all I have to say about Strange Eons for now. So good luck and happy reading. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for more book reviews and check out other videos for other book recommendations you may like to try. Remember, you can support my work by checking out my own books, The Immortal Investigations. Otherwise, check out my shop and my Patreon. I'll be back very soon with another book review. Until then, I hope you enjoy a good book today. Bye.